good afternoon. No, well, it's soon going to be good evening, but for the time being, it's good afternoon. So thank you very much for being here. There is no stories, so please don't sit in the hope of a story. It's better to catch a cup of coffee. I'm going to talk a little bit. I do appreciate that we all have to appreciate that our next speaker has a time window in which he has to finish. So I'll keep myself very, very brief. I'll just tell you a little bit about the time that we last met in 2019 here. And then on 2 editions, we met at over the Zoom calls. So there's lots that have happened since then, but just a few things that I thought I'll share with you. First, of course, the fact that you are here. So the fact that you are here, I think whatever the young lady said, let's give ourselves a big hand. And it's always good to do that in the afternoon. It keeps you awake, amongst other things. The second is NIIT in this period crossed a very interesting milestone. I call it the 40-40-40. NIIT became 40 years old. NIIT operates in 40 countries. And NIIT also crossed the number of training 40 million people in these 40 years. So the NIIT trilogy, which started with the small mission of bringing people and computers together, is now a trilogy. NIIT started as bringing people and computers together successfully, is now moving on to getting everybody or helping and enabling people to realize their true potential. We made it much more generic. And in this process also created the dream of reach 1 billion and teach 1 billion. 40 years later, we are still at 40 million. So that's a long way to go. And therefore, NIIT is going to be here for long periods of time. There have been new additions to the family. So let me welcome our colleagues from RPS Consulting who became a part of NIIT family. RPS, wake up, get up. Yes, all right. So you'll get to know more about RPS Consulting. They do some training in emerging technologies for working technology professionals, amongst others, and we'll talk about that. And lately, we also added another very interesting group called St. Charles Consulting Group, which is based in Illinois, US. So that's the size of NIIT has increased. Another reason for us to be here today and share and celebrate is the fact that our board of directors always used to wonder, what is this expense which comes in January and February? They decided to do a due diligence check, and today the whole board of directors is here to attend this Confluence and say, where does all this money go? So we also have, if I had time, I would have introduced them personally to you individually, but given the fact that we have a smaller time window, I'll leave that for later parts of the day. Coming back to Confluence, since Bimal made such a hula about it, Confluence actually got born in US. And we ran that for many, many years before we realized that it's time to bring it to India. And we just finished the 15th or 16th edition of Confluence in US in the middle of a hurricane. We somehow seem to meet in very, very dire circumstances each time. And in this case, it was a hurricane going on outside. And there was a hurricane going on inside the conference room also, where we actually discussed some very, very interesting topics. But more about that in further sessions. So the birth of Confluence actually came from the thought of saying L&D leaders do not get a forum to express themselves. They don't get a forum to network with each other and discuss their issues. In their organizations, they are very, very small part of the organization, small but very important part of the organization. And in the rest of the world, there are conferences of HR leaders where they are lost in the crowd because HR leaders have many, many other things to discuss as well. We said L&D leaders need to have a forum to express. So very much like Woodstock and the whole theme is built around and the construct is built around Woodstock, where musicians from every part of the world come. They are invited, they come voluntarily, they don't buy tickets, they don't do anything, they just land up. They come and play their music, and others listen to that music, feel happy, learn something, play their own music, and like that, the community grows. So we decided to call it the Woodstock of Learning, and that's been going on in US for 15 odd years, and now in India, it is the sixth edition of Confluence. 2 editions were online. This is the 4th one, which is being done in person. Some important characteristics of that: it's very compact. You can see we meet in a small room, like-minded people. Everybody participates. Just about everybody will get a chance to participate either in a panel or you are anyway participating as equals. This stage is purposely kept low so that the difference between, or the level between you and the people on the stage is kept minimum so that there is communication which flows. Everything is collaborative. There is learning for all, and there is peer level interactions at each level. It's non-threatening, it's non-evaluative. You can express yourself the way you want. And it is unbiased. There's no selling. Most of the conferences which get organized around by organizations, there is either oblique or direct selling. There's no selling. From time to time, you may hear the word NIIT, but that's very unintentional. Most of us have grown up in NIIT, so that's the name which we understand well. But there is absolutely no compulsion to listen to anything to do with us. Listen to the people who are sharing these experiences, and to that extent, it's an intellectual conversation. The topic is very, very current always. It is an emerging trend. It is an important issue. And in this case, the important issue was thrive, vigorous growth, accelerating that growth in a broken talent environment. And Bimal just alluded to parts of the broken talent environment. I would have covered that in greater detail, but I would just say a few words. We share best practices so that we learn from each other. And then there are people who come from outside, and outside the industry, outside the learning industry, who give us new ideas, and we therefore discover next practices. So it's not only about best practices, it is also about next practices. More important than anything else, it's a community. We are a community that meets together. I just mentioned there are 60 of us here. Nearly 45% of you have attended one, actually more than one Confluence most of the time, right? So 2 or more Confluences is more common than just having attended one Confluence. So once you attend one, then there is a good likelihood that you'll land up for the next one and the next one. The setting, after a lot of debate, the setting is decided by the audience, but after a lot of debate in the first 3 years, where we debated many venues, it was unanimously decided that Goa is the place, permanently. So we decided this venue. The venue will be the same. The hall will be the same. The food can be different. Many other things can be different. Goa, because there was a lot of debate on that, people believe that the air, water, and food of Goa, the whole ambience, is very conducive to networking, to learning, to having fun, especially the water. And therefore, we make sure that there is a lot of water and liquidy stuff that you have to consume most of the time in the evenings. There is another rule which we follow, and that is very simple to what people say in US. What happens in Vegas remains in Vegas. So what happens in Goa remains in Goa. I'm mostly referring to your exploits outside this room. And to that extent, we make sure that all your networking and bonhomie and friendships and peer level relationships that you have, build and solidify, and you have a good time, and all that you take from here is learnings and memories. So the statistics, as Bimal pointed out, or I told Bimal, we have 60 participants from 66 to be precise, 40 odd organizations. Nearly 60% are from technology sector, either technology users or producers or OEMs, and the balance are equally split between BFSI and retail, manufacturing, and other sectors. Going back to the theme just for a minute, and all the right words Bimal has already spoken. The whole theme of Thrive, accelerating growth in a broken talent environment, I think the word to watch out for, or the words to watch out for, is the broken talent environment. And the history of broken talent environment, according to me, is in one event which actually changed everything. Digital technologies were knocking on the door of industry for long periods of time. And there were some early adopters, there were a large number of fence-sitters, and there were a large number of naysayers. But in 2 weeks' time, with one cataclysmic event, everything changed. Suddenly, the world adopted digital as if it was waiting to happen. And after that, nobody has ever questioned why digital technologies exist. Should digital technologies have a role to play? It has never been questioned. And we went overboard on using everything digital. We learned to live, work, learn, travel, relax. In short, do just about everything digitally. So much so that we often thought that we did not need as many people also. And then many people could not come to their offices. We had a lockdown on our hands, so work from home happened. Homes shifted, lifestyles changed, but organizations grew. And not only grew, they grew well. In fact, organizations did well. Their P&Ls read better than before. And once restrictions were lifted, organizations thought the growth is back, and they all rushed for the growth. But then they realized that all those things which they used to do 100% digitally were not possible anymore. And they needed people to be present physically. People to be present physically in their workplaces, people to be present physically in the classrooms. And just learning through digital technology was not good enough. But that's when the first problem struck. People realized that there was a vacuum as far as talent was concerned. So the first thing the unintended consequence of COVID was the great resignation problem. All those people who had been asked to go or had been forced to go and leave their workplaces and places where they stayed near their workplaces suddenly did not want to come back, because they had discovered a new way of living. They had discovered a new work-life balance. And this was a global problem. Different contours in different parts of the world, but the problem was consistent. I will not talk more about that. But then, when people went to fill up their spaces in very, very big hurry, we discovered the new ways of recruitment which we followed also had problems. Recruitment fraud started happening. Impersonation started happening. Joining rates were low. You gave 100 appointment letters, 40 people landed up. And 60% of the time, therefore, the person whom you appointed may not land up on the joining date. There was rage applying, another term which came about. High attrition, because people were jumping from jobs to jobs. And this is all that has happened in the last 24 months. Moonlighting, very, very popular term, has a meaning, has a very distinct meaning, and I think we'll explore more as we go along. Quiet quitting are some of these new words which came in our vocabulary, and the real issue behind all that was the alignment of human beings or employees with the organization had cracked, that alignment was gone. And to that extent, people were not aligned with the organization. People were more aligned with their future. And I say it in very simple words. When we hired people 10 years ago, we told them, you are our assets. You are the real assets of the organization. And we treated them like fixed assets. We looked after them. We made sure that they did better and better and better. And then the COVID struck. And then in that whole melee of changes which happened, suddenly those fixed assets started getting treated like current assets. They were saying, sorry, we don't need you right now. So you can take leave, you can take furlough, you can leave, you can do whatever else. And suddenly the fixed assets discovered that they were current assets. And this went on for a while. And I think when normalcy returned, these current assets decided that they had been let down. And therefore, they started behaving like crypto assets. And which is what we are going through in the broken talent environment. So the story of broken talent environment is fixed assets to current assets to crypto assets. You treat your assets, fixed assets, as current assets, then current assets will behave like crypto assets. And I think these are the problems which we as L&D leaders have to solve. It's a great opportunity for the L&D leaders because this is a problem which the organization, if solved, can actually move on to a different growth trajectory. And therefore, it's a time for L&D leaders to make themselves visible to the rest of the organization and earn their space or earn their place on the head table. I think I look at it as an opportunity, this broken talent environment, because the people sitting in this room have the solutions for that. Many of you have tried these solutions in the past. Some of them have worked. Some of them may not have worked. Much of what you achieved or didn't achieve is visible in your numbers and in your market position. And I think you have now understood that talent is an agenda to be handled at a much higher level. It requires a mindset change in the organization. It requires a skill set change in the organization. And it requires a tool set change in the organization. I could elaborate on that at some other time. But given the time right now that I have, I think these are the questions which we have to ask. How do L&D leaders contribute to organizational agility? How do they change the mindset, skill set, and the tool set in the organization? How do L&D leaders build a cohesive culture when all the people will not be in the room or in the same building ever together? How do they change the culture when 50% of the organization has never met each other in the last 3 years? And how do we work with the new cohorts and align their vision with the organization vision? Because in this process, Gen Z, which has come in, has also started looking at what is the purpose that this organization is fulfilling? How is it aligned with my purpose? How is the training that I am getting help me in my career versus help the organization with its organization goals? And these are very, very interesting questions that I think we will answer in the next 2 days. We have a very interesting lineup of speakers. Bimal already referred to it. The program is in front of you, so I'll skip that detail because now I would like to share with you something about a person who has actually led his organization with great gusto and great confidence and great results in this time. And that is our leader who will be helping us through the inaugural session. And I have great pleasure in introducing you to Mr. Amitabh Chaudhary, the Managing Director and CEO of Axis Bank. Amongst other things, we are grateful to you, Amitabh, for being with us today. And you would also have the honor of being with us for the second time and sharing this dais at the same position. So thank you very much. We are indeed very, very honored. But just a couple of words. Amitabh is an engineer from Birla Institute of Technology and Sciences, BITS Pilani, and has done his MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. So an engineer who decided to be a banker and a BFSI and financial services professional. He's touched every part of financial services, whether it is investment banking, structured finance, wholesale banking, running a bank, running a life insurance company, and running a life insurance company with great distinction. It is the best brand in life insurance as it exists even today, a few years after he has left. His detailed resume is available with us, but if I read that out to you, then I would deny him the opportunity of sharing his thoughts, which I think are very interesting. Some interesting parts about his personality. He is a big sports enthusiast. If there was not this small bank to be run, he would have perhaps been in the World Cup cricket team playing the batsman at maybe number 2 or number 3. I believe he's a very good batsman. He loves music of different genre. Very friendly with people, very quick on decision making, very agile. But behind this astute banker and professional also lies a man with a very, very kind heart. He is a big philanthropist as well. And I'm sure even that we will discover in the conversation. So I welcome you once again, Amitabh, amongst us. And in the conversation with him, there is a person whose resume I can read out for the next 3 days. But enough to say, the visionary behind NIIT, the founder of the NIIT group, the chairman of the NIIT group, and the one who has actually led India's foray into the world stage as a big provider of information technology solutions and services. He had the foresight to think of India with its great demographic dividend can play a role if we build very strong education and technology education, especially technology education, in building IT professionals of tomorrow. That led to the birth of NIIT, and I have great pleasure in introducing you to Rajendra Singh Pawar. His work has been recognized by all of us many times over, but more than that, by the country, by the world. He is a recipient of Padma Bhushan, which is country's prestigious civilian honor. He's also served on a number of policy-making committees of the government. Most recent foray and his passion has been in cybersecurity area, where I think he authored the report to the Prime Minister of how cybersecurity could be an area where India could actually play a very, very strong and distinctive role. He serves on the board of educational institutions. He's been honored by the school that he went to, the highest honor. He's been honored by the college he went to, the distinguished alumnus, and he has also been honored by the country that he belongs to. So I could talk more about him, but with that, I invite you both, Amitabh and Raji, to come and share the dais. I think we'll need 2 chairs. Okay. To share the dais and continue with your conversation. So, wishing you all a wonderful conference. Thank you.